You heard Sheriff Emery mention the Vietnam War veterans. You heard him talk about Clayton James. There's a couple more around here floating in. I'm going to introduce you to one now. It's a veteran of the Vietnam United States Army. Would you please welcome Rod Worth.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We are here today not to debate whether we should be in Iraq, whether President Bush lied about WMDs, whether Rumsfeld's reconstruction plan was flawed, or whether America invaded Iraq because of oil. We are here to celebrate and support our military personnel who are unselfishly serving in a very unstable and hostile environment. Just 4.5 years ago, I sat in front of my television, awestruck by the scenes unfolding. In an almost surreal manner, reminiscent of the fall of the Berlin Wall, there were images of jubilant Iraqis tearing down the statue of yet another brutal dictator driven from power by the American military. And I was so proud of our soldiers, not only for the courage, skill, and professionalism they showed under fire, but more importantly, for the compassion and understanding shown to an oppressed people. Let no one on this planet doubt we are the good guys and we carry a big stick. Our troops gave to the Iraqi people a gift that mankind has always yearned for: freedom. Nothing highlighted this gift more than the pictures of Iraqis holding up ink-stained fingers after voting in an election that seemed almost unthinkable a few years before. Unfortunately, the forces of evil have stepped in, trying to steal that gift, inflicting as much pain and suffering as possible in the process. Again, as so many times in the last century, the only thing standing in the way of genocide is the men and women of our armed forces. I would like to share with you the story of just one of our nation's finest. Marine First Sergeant Brad Castle, an Iowa native, was leading door-to-door patrols in Fallujah when he went to the aid of other Marines pinned down by insurgents at a house. After fighting his way to a wounded comrade to apply aid, Sergeant Castle saw an insurgent drop a grenade from an upstairs room on their position. Disregarding his own safety, Castle shielded the wounded soldier from the blast with his own body. Although wounded by 7 AK-47 rounds and 40 pieces of shrapnel from the grenade, Sergeant Castle continued to lead the attack until the area was secured. Where does America continue to find these heroes? Skeptics would say that they are the undereducated, impoverished class that has no opportunity other than to enlist. In reality, though, they come from all backgrounds with a common goal: to be the best they can be and to serve their nation with pride. As a former combat infantryman, it does not bother me a bit to admit that today's soldiers are the best trained, most skilled, and most motivated that our country has ever produced. Our presence here today is important to their mission. George Washington said at the founding of our country, "The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional as to how they perceive veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation. We must not forget or remain silent while our service members are still at their posts. We must send a clear and united message to them and their enemies. America will not lack the resolve seen 30 years ago in Vietnam. One of the best sayings I've encountered recently is, leave Iraq, see Somalia, then get back to me. It has been said that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Many who seek to compare Iraq to Vietnam are again forgetting the lessons we should have learned there. Instead of seeing Iraq as a quagmire that we should withdraw from, we should remember what happened after we left Vietnam and abandoned the South Vietnamese and our own POWs. Thousands killed in the takeover by North Vietnam. Boat people trying to escape re-education camps. And of course the hundreds of thousands killed by Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. We have a moral obligation to not let this happen again. Leave Iraq, remember Vietnam, then get back to me. Perhaps the closest parallel between Iraq and Vietnam may be the political climate of each. At the height of the Vietnam War, Senator J. William Fulbright stated that Vietnamese peasants couldn't care less whether they lived under a dictator or were living in a democracy. Navy Commander John Kerry testified before Congress that our military personnel were behaving in a way reminiscent of Genghis Khan. Actress Jane Fonda posed with an anti-aircraft battery that fired on our own airmen. Fast forward 35 years. We now have a former presidential candidate saying that the Vietnamese re-education camps weren't so bad because many of those people are now alive and prospering. We have a member of the House of Representatives that likened the Marines at Haditha to murders of civilians without giving our own soldiers the presumption of innocence. We have a Midwest senator comparing our treatment of prisoners at Guantanamo to a Soviet gulag. Leave Iraq, study the Vietnam War, then get back to me. I don't need those anyway. Those who have chosen to ignore the toll the political turmoil during Vietnam took on our ability to win there are aiding and comforting our enemies in Iraq. America must rise above petty politics and support our troops for victory, not surrender.